Hello, folks. It is Sunday, must be January the 29th. I want to look at some stock picks from the Hedgeless Horseman, who also goes by, I guess actually this is his given name, Eric Wetterling, the Hedgeless Horseman. I respect his fundamental analysis of mining companies. And so I always look at his work, and I like to look at his stock picks and his thoughts on forming a portfolio of junior miners. And so some of his recent stuff has been exactly on that topic: is what does a portfolio of junior miners look like? And so anyway, I highly recommend Eric's work. What we're going to talk about today, he recently published this article, and it was on 321 Gold, and so that's another resource that I've shown you multiple times. That's Bob Moriarty's site, 321gold.com. I go there every day, and at this point, in my opinion, that's really the only website you need to follow in the resource space for the silver and gold and the mining stocks. That 321gold.com. That's really the only place you need to look. There's a couple other sites, but if you stick with 321 Gold, you'll be doing okay. So anyway, we're going to look at this article, or actually, we're not going to look at the article. We're going to look at a selected set of the stocks that Eric is suggesting in this article. Now he splits it up into two categories of stocks. He's got the core, and of course, we can have a conversation about portfolio structure, but this is the core of a junior mining stock portfolio. And so you might choose to segment your portfolio of mining stocks into subcategories of, majors, mid-tiers, juniors. And so what we're looking at today is strictly in that junior category. These are micro cap mining companies. But within that category or subcategory, Eric is making two distinctions. And the distinction is between a core position, i.e., I'm going to buy these shares and plan to hold them for several years. I want to see these mines develop. And if they develop as I expect, or as Eric expects, it's potentially a multi-decade holding. That these properties could be mined for decades to come. And then the second category is exploration. And so we'll see that as we go through these stocks. This is me. This is my thinking. These PowerPoint slides. So we got 2,000 plus stocks out there in the mining, precious metals mining sector. There's no way that one human or a few humans can analyze 2,000 mining companies. And so you need some methodology as an investor, small-time investor. You need some kind of methodology for weeding through those 2,000 mining companies. And then I always point this out because it's a good thought to keep in mind. Most of these companies, they will never produce a single ounce of metal. They will continually seek money. Every penny of investor money they get, they will burn through. Maybe they'll burn through it wisely. Maybe they won't. But they'll never discover and produce any metal. That basically just a lost cause, and that's most of those 2,000. And so anyway, we need a methodology for thinning down those 2,000 candidates, and of course that's part of due diligence. Is we want we want to select the best candidates, the best stocks for our particular objectives. And so these are my thoughts on due diligence. First of all, do it. Don't just throw money blindly at stocks, saucers or dollar signs in the eyes. It's easy to do. There's a lot of marketers that target the junior mining sector, and they tell good stories. And it's easy. It's easy to tell a good story about a mine. I think it was Mark Twain who said, or is attributed to having said, a gold mine is a hole in the ground with a liar at the top. And some of these liars are very gifted, and then they hire, I'm doing air quotes, independent analysis, air quotes. They go out and buy independent analysis to support the idea that they actually have more. The pig that they're holding out in the mud hole is more than it looks like. And so anyway, do your due diligence. And then this is probably my primary technique in doing, or at least my initial due diligence, and weeding through the 2,000 mining stocks. I lean on the work of other people, and it's people that over the years, and I've been investing in the precious metals for 20 years now. Over that period of time, I've identified a few individuals that I trust. And so when they come out and say, hey, I'm interested in this company, I assume, and shame on me for making assumptions, but I assume that these individuals have done some level of due diligence on the companies that they're promoting. And so these are my short list, and it is a short list. These are the individuals who I have as respected fundamental analysts of mining companies. So, and notice that Eric is one of them, the hedgeless horseman. So let's keep rolling. When we are looking at a list of mining stocks, one of the primary factors, in my opinion, these days is the jurisdiction where they are mining. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's some very fundamental changes occurring. The petrodollar is ending. It's going to be replaced. It's already being replaced with the petro yuan at this juncture, is what it currently looks like, is a petro yuan. But then there's also, just this weekend, I'm starting to see hints that the BRICS nations are giving up on their idea of a common currency, some kind of basket of currencies made up of each of the individual countries' currencies, and just go straight to a gold-backed currency. And of course, that's the easiest thing to do. And based on history, we know it works. And that's a point that Bob Moriarty makes regularly, is that he comes right out and says it. Ultimately, we're going to go to a gold-backed currency because it works. And we're at the end of fiat currency realm or modus of operandi. Fiat currencies are dead. They just don't realize it yet. And so something will replace fiat currencies. In my mind, it will be precious metals, or some kind of commodity-backed basket. But anytime you start talking about baskets, and there was even they were going to do a commodity-backed based on the resources that each individual country has. And so, let's say I don't know what resources each country produces, but let's say, Uzbekistan produces oil, and so they're going to back their portion of the currency basket with oil, and Another country produces, Belarus produces natural gas, and so they're going to back their portion of the currency with natural gas. I mean, it just gets complicated. And the more complicated things are, the greater the likelihood that they'll fail. And so jumping straight to a gold-backed currency makes sense for international settlement amongst the BRICS nations, the SCO nations. Basically, it's 85% of the world that's choosing not to participate in the current plans of the Western globalists. So, and so anyway, I'm babbling, I'm talkative today. As part of our thinning down the 2,000 mining stocks, we want to, or I choose to only invest or trade in mining stocks that are located in the best mining jurisdictions. Now, I have a few stocks in my portfolio that are an exception to that guideline, but for the most part, we want to stick to tier 1 locations for all our mining stocks. There was another article, or actually it's one of the visual capitalists' graphs or diagrams, however you want to describe that, also published on 321 Gold. Let's look at that now. This is just one portion of it. You can see we're in the middle of this infographic, and that's what you call them, infographic. And this is just a relevant section of that. And again, it was published on 321 Gold. And so it's showing us here, these are the tier 1 primary first choice mining jurisdictions. And so when we are thinking about where do we want to put our hard-earned money when we're investing in or trading in mining stocks, if we stick to these locations, or at least primarily stick to these locations, we're putting the odds in our favor as much as we can. So like one of the stocks we're going to look at today is in Africa, and it's down here in this part of Africa. It's Côte d'Ivoire. I have no idea how that's pronounced, but it's country down here in this part of Africa. I looked on the map and noticed that it is not in a tier 1 jurisdiction. And so we might choose as conservative investors not to play in that stock. So anyway, let's jump in. And again, let me emphasize, we are looking at, this is probably less than half of the stock picks that Eric made in that article we're going to look at. Because I looked at the charts of all of them, everything that he recommended or put in his article, and I've thinned it down to the stocks that are at or near what I feel is a decent buying point. And so I'm investing in the current rally. It appears that both the precious metals, gold and silver, are in sustainable rallies. We just got golden crosses in the 50 and the 200-day moving averages. It's shaping up to be a sustained uptrend in the precious metals, and of course with the metals rising, the stocks are going to follow. Now I am being quite selective on where I put my money, and I'm looking at these primarily as trading positions, not long-term investments, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, let's get rolling with the charts. This is Eloro Resources. We've looked at it before. I like this. It's in this trading range between, call it $3 and $4, and it's currently down at the bottom of that range. And it got there on I would call that a capitulation, that big gap down on a huge spike in volume. That's investors giving up. They're basically puking their shares into the market. They're saying, get me out of here. I don't care how much money I lose. I just want out. And so the good thing about a capitulation is that it cleanses, it cleans sentiment. And so it puts a stock back at a, we got rid of all the, the people that didn't want to be here anyway. They were stinking the place up. We got rid of them. They took their loss. They're licking their wounds, doing whatever they're going to do. And so now the stock is somewhat refreshed, or can refresh and head back up. So anyway, there is a positive to that action here in Eloro. Not really exciting accumulation distribution. MACD is in bear mode currently. Histogram hinting that momentum is trying to turn upwards, energy down here at the low end of the scale. So not really exciting from a technical perspective, other than it is down at the bottom of this $1 range, and we can see, you can see that support would assume that this is going to hold as support again. And so although it's not a very exciting buy point, this looks like a fairly safe buy point if you're looking for a place to participate in this current rally. This is a mix of me looking at the company's presentation, and then also Eric's thoughts on the stock. So I'm not going to read it to you. Let's focus on catalysts, or the highlights that I like. Looks like by the end of 23, we're going to get a resource estimate. And this is the initial resource. This is a big deposit. And so there's likely to be a lot of news flow and investor interest this year leading into this resource estimate. And so opportunity for value add, probably a good time to be in this stock, and probably enough catalyst there to drive us back up to that top of the range. Quentin Henney and Crescat Capital involved. I always like to see them. 85 million shares, fairly tightly held, 61%. A lot of drilling completed, lots of potential. Large land package at Eloro. See Montage Gold, Golden Cross. Investors starting to accumulate, got a nice spike in volume there. MACD in bull mode, currently on a sell signal, and that's a new sell signal. A little bit worrisome that price dropped below this horizontal support resistance level. But with the 20-day moving average that close below, not surprising that we'd get an overthrow, assuming that's what this is, an overthrow down to test that 20-day while we were so close. So we may see price pop back above this horizontal level. So wouldn't give up on that yet. Energy mid-range. MACD, there's still a little bit of upside in MACD before we run into this overbought level that stopped us this last time. And that would take us back up to, that prior target. So anyway, that's Montage. What do we got to say? That's the one that's in Africa. And so, see, for me, I'm not interested because of its geolocation. But that's me. Other people have different ideas of how to invest this. We've got some major investors who think that this is a good company to be involved with. Barrick's not going to get involved with a bad company, you wouldn't think. They've got probable reserves, almost 4 million ounces, large land package. This is probably the most positive things, or one of the most positive things about Montage, in my opinion, that the current management team has already developed and sold 2 African gold projects, and now this may be their third. And what I've always said about Tom Clancy novels is that Tom found a formula that works, and he just kept cranking it. And that, after you read 4 or 5 of Tom's novels, it's like, these, they're all the same. It's just a formula, and he's cranking them out. It's like, yeah, well, the formula works. And so, same thing in the mining space. You find a formula that works, and you crank it until it doesn't work. And so, quite likely that these guys in Montage are working, they're cranking their formula a third time. So Dolly Varden, we've looked at before. They are adjacent to Hecla. They're in the Golden Triangle, British Columbia. This is the weekly time frame. So everything else we're going to look at is daily. There's just more useful information, in my opinion, in the weekly time frame for Dolly. And you can see that we've got this constructive upward action in this Andrews Pitchfork. Median line serving as resistance, lower median line as support currently. Investors starting to come back in, got some nice volume. Energy is elevated. MACD is in bull mode on a buy signal, so looking good in the weekly time frame. Overhead resistance from the prior high, so we need to work our way up through that. And then some more overhead. Really we need to get up above, looks like 78, up above 80, and then we'll be looking at that prior high. So anyway, Dolly's a good one. Adjacent to Hecla. Hecla has got an agreement, an earn-in agreement on 4 projects. Am I thinking of? No, I'm sorry. I'm mixing my properties. I was looking at too many properties this morning. So Hecla owns 10% of Dolly Varden and is the most likely buyer of Dolly, in my opinion, and the opinion of other analysts. The properties are adjacent. It would make sense for Hecla to buy Dolly. If any of the majors are going to buy Dolly, it makes the most sense for Hecla. So anyway, Dolly's one to look at. Fireweed, I like this technical action where we've pushed up through decisively or impulsively pushed up through a support resistance zone, and then have established that area as support. And so that's what we're doing now, I would suggest, is continuing to build support along this level. We're digesting this big move. This is a big move. The stock went from 50 cents to $1, so basically doubled in what is that, a month, a trading month. So 4 or 5 weeks doubled, and is now digesting that gain. Nothing exciting in accumulation distribution. MACD in bull mode, still on a sell signal, looks like it trying to bottom there, and then energy is low. So Fireweed looking decent in a technical perspective. Good location, polymetallic, 78%, so tightly held. And of course, the more tightly a company is held, the more likely it is to be a fast mover and a large mover. That when they have positive news, there's a limited amount of shares available, and the investors are likely to drive price up quickly and dramatically because it's just the shares aren't available. Nevada King, I like this one from a technical perspective, except it's very overbought from a MACD perspective. So we can see, prior high in MACD, and we're right up there again. And so that's a little bit worrisome. Very overbought in MACD. But look at the accumulation. I mean, investors are clearly accumulating the stock and hanging on to their shares. So 40 cents. Not sure how to play this. Energy is elevated. If we get a move higher in the metals, it could blow through that overhead resistance. But that would be an impulsive move higher. But anything's possible. Got a nice build in volume over the last 2 months or so. That looks good. So anyway, that's a decent looking technically. Nevada, obviously, large claim holder. And one of the things that they point out in their material is that they were, at the depressive bottom, the last bottom of the bear market in mining companies, they were out staking land. And so they staked a bunch of land, got to, their third largest claim holder in Nevada. They're actively drilling. And so anyway, that's Nevada King, something to look at. Brixton Metals is another one I like from a technical perspective. This is a weekly, and I misspoke, so this is the second weekly chart. Look at accumulation distribution. That looks great. Investors clearly accumulating it. We've got a impulsive push through this horizontal support resistance level. Now we've got our pullback testing that level as support. Assuming it holds and we get a push higher, that'll be very nice technical action. And of course, that's what I'm expecting. Is a push higher from the support level. MACD in bull mode, looks like we just got a fresh sell signal. Have some room to run in MACD before we run into this prior high, this level of overboughtness. Energy in the just above the halfway level. So that's Brixton in the weekly time frame. Here in the daily, MACD in bear mode on a sell signal, and energy very low. Investors, I'd probably profit taking. We want to see the support level hold and some suggestion or positive indication that price wants to head higher, perhaps before we enter this stock. Depends on your strategy for investing or trading in the juniors. British Columbia, polymetallic. BHP is a strong backer of Brixton. They hold 19.9% of the shares. And I think they're actively involved in developing properties that Brixton has control of. And so that's a real strong indicator when you got a major like BHP involved. Western Alaska, I like the way this stock is just steadily plodding higher along the 200-day moving average. Obviously, it got carried away. It moved too far too fast. Back here in mid 2022, pulled back, and now is just relentlessly moving higher. Currently at the lower end of this trading range. If we consider this a trading range, we're at the lower end of it. MACD on a sell signal, it looks like mostly in bull mode, energy very low. Nice accumulation distribution. Investors are accumulating this stock. I like that. Moving averages are in bullish alignment. 50-day above the 200, 20 above the 50. There's just a lot to like there technically. Polymetallic. Look at that small number of shares. That's a very small number of shares issued, and management and major investors got 61%. So definitely a tightly held company ought to be a strong mover, and that's probably what we're seeing here. Is that the stock jumped from 170 to 330, and then on up to basically doubled. 170, 340, more than doubled in 2 days. Yeah, so very impulsive move. Because it's, at least in part, because it's so tightly held. So that's an interesting one. Snowline Gold. What I like about this one, a couple of things. Technically, nice action in the accumulation distribution, investors accumulating. MACD very oversold, so extremely oversold. Price bumped into this overhead resistance. Very overbought in MACD at that point, almost at the level of the price. Well, no, it still had a ways to go. But anyway, overbought on MACD perspective, rolled over at that point, but now has not only worked off that overbought level, but has become very oversold from a MACD perspective. And MACD histogram is hinting at a long bottoming process and momentum turning back up again. Energy clearly rising off the low range, and again, long bottoming process. But throughout this decline, low energy, investors held on to their shares, which that's a positive thing. Last 2 days of trading last week, positive action pushing up into resistance at the 20-day moving average. A little bit longer term as a trading target, we've got this open gap overhead at 350. And so obviously we'll probably get some resistance at the 50-day moving average, $3 round number just overhead. So almost certainly going to have resistance there. And then the next target will be closing this open gap at 350. So Snowline Gold is interesting. Technically, Yukon is a good location, large package, half held by management, half of the shares held by management. Pacific Ridge, low volume in this one. You can see that in the choppy candles. Very nice action. Investors clearly accumulating. MACD in bull mode on a buy signal. Energy very elevated. What first caught my eye in this stock is this sideways trading range. Tim Morge, Dr. Timothy Morge, he was my instructor, mentor for Andrews Pitchforks, and one of his techniques that he taught was trading ranges. He called them energy coils. And he pointed out that when price gets into these sideways trading ranges, energy is coiling or gathering for the next move. And of course, we don't know. Tim always pointed out that we don't know which direction that move will be. Could be to the upside, could be to the downside, but we can use other indications in the chart to guess at which way, probability, which way does probability suggest price is going to move. In this case, it's to the upside. We've got this action and accumulation distribution. We've got buying volume, MACD in bull mode, energy elevated. So positive indication suggests that when this coil breaks, it will break to the upside. A very obvious target is the 200-day moving average overhead. 4 cents doesn't seem like much, but what is that? That's a 10% move in this stock. So, and then the real target of interest as a trade, and if I buy shares in this stock, my target will be 43 cents at this prior high. So that's the interesting target in my perspective, and of course that's a 30% gain if price reaches that level. British Columbia, good location. Copper, gold, the base metals are hot. Copper is hot because of green movement. electric vehicles, etc. Not enough copper, so copper is a good place to be. 48% held by management. Alpha exploration, even lower volume trading in this one, very choppy candlesticks, nice accumulation action, investors buying shares and holding on to them. What I notice in this chart is a downward sloping channel, a change in behavior. So this impulsive movement to the upside, this is a change in behavior from this downward channel. The fact that it's impulsive gives it more validity, makes us, it's not just a fluke. This isn't a volatility chop. This is a change in investor behavior. And we can see that, volumes coming in, big volume coming in, MACD moving up in bull mode, energy elevated. So decisive change in behavior at this point, and then a sideways chop in that range for, is that 2 months? November, that's more than, that's 4 months. So sideways chop, and now potentially a sustained movement to the upside. We've gone from this low volume chop in here, and now we're getting some steadier volume and movement to the upside. MACD, we've got a fresh buy signal moving up into bull mode, energy up at the upper end or towards the upper end of the range. So nice action in alpha exploration, very low volume in this stock, and so could be a challenge to get in and out of it. Probably has a pretty wide bid-ask spread. So my strategy for those kind of stocks is I just put in a bid, what I'm willing to pay. I tend to split the difference between the bid and ask, just kind of right in there in the middle, and let it sit. And just patience, over the course of a day or two, tend to get a fill that way. Of course, miss out on some trades. They get away sometimes, but often that strategy works for me. Now alpha's in Africa, and so again, you have to decide what you're feeling on tier 1 jurisdictions or not. Whether you want to be involved in alpha, another copper play. Eritrea is down at the very, I believe, from memory, down at the very southern tip of Africa, I believe. Let's keep rolling. Headwater Gold, another one I like from a technical perspective. It's an impulsive push up through a horizontal support resistance level, and then a pullback to test that breakout for support. And it appears that we're currently getting an upward movement off of that support level and the 20-day moving average. Nice action in accumulation distribution. Overbought from MACD, so that's a little bit of a concern. We're at a very overbought level in MACD. Now, MACD is not range bound. MACD can go as high as it wants, but the prior highs quite often mark the level where price rolls over and rests. Now, maybe that just means a continuation of this sideways chop. Investors obviously like this stock, so we just have to see. And again, lots of different strategies for playing stocks. A breakout trader could have bought that breakout, perhaps taken some profit on this spike. A more conservative trader might wait for the retest and then some kind of entry criteria, which, in my opinion, has occurred. We got the retest and then big bullish candle and now another bullish doji. So I'd say that was a retest, a positive retest, and a resumption of the upward trend. So anyway, I like Headwater Gold technically. good location in the good old United States. Um, this project generator model, that's where they have a number of projects, discrete projects they keep in the pipeline, and they develop these projects and then joint venture or option them out to other mining companies, and let those companies take on the risk and cost of developing those properties while retaining some ownership, whether it's a royalty stream, a percentage, however the agreement is arranged. So anyway, that's a decent business model. They've currently got 7 projects in their stream, low shares issued, 46% held by management and by large investors. Newcrest Mining has almost 10%, and they have partnered on, that's what I was thinking of earlier. So it's Newcrest has earn-in agreements on 4 projects that are controlled by Headwater Gold. So we got a major miner involved, and Newcrest is funding the exploration costs on those 4 projects. So that's an interesting stock. I like it technically, except for MACD. So let's keep moving. Now this is so everything we've looked at up to this point was from Eric Wetterling, the Hedgeless Horseman. Got one more stock that I want to look at. That's Arizona Silver. Now I have to do a hat tip to Clive Mound, I believe is how I would pronounce his last name. Now he's a paid newsletter writer. I like Clive's work. He focuses on the penny stocks, all of the resource, not just precious metals, but also tech stocks and other stocks. He focuses on penny stocks and stocks that, from a technical perspective, he believes are ready to make significant moves. And so anyway, this is a pick from Arizona Silver. And I just want to give a hat tip to Clive Mound because this is his pick. I like Arizona Silver, obviously located in the United States. It's gold and silver, 83 million shares, very tightly held. And so that's something I like about this stock. From a technical perspective, it got, it's recently pushed up into this overhead resistance and has pulled back looking for support. Now it's perhaps finding support just above the 20-day moving average. Nice action, accumulation distribution, MACD in bull mode. Fresh sell signal, energy just above mid-range. So perhaps early to take a position in Arizona, but definitely one to watch. Notice the volume building. Lots of room in relative to MACD, lots of room before we hit the prior high as a potential stop in the current rally. So, and that would maybe take us to a target up there. And of course, if I decide to enter this stock, I'd be looking for that would be my target, would be this prior high up here. So that's it for the stocks. I've run longer than I had intended to, but we've got some interesting picks in here. Let's talk about the current rally just for a minute. In my opinion, we had a big move. So gold jumped $300, 30%. Silver jumped $6, 30%. So big move in the space of 2 months, and so big moves in the metals. And then the mining stocks, it hasn't been dramatic, But the mining stocks, based on the indexes like GDX, they're up 50% or more. So the mining stocks are definitely moving up along with the metals. The fact that it's occurring rather slowly, rather stealthily, is one of the factors that suggests that this current rally has legs, that it's likely to be extended, not just a flash in the pan. And so that's the big picture. Now, I think in those big moves, those 30% moves that silver and gold made, they got a little bit, not necessarily ahead of themselves, but they're resting. And so they're currently resting. And then the mining stocks that moved in the early part of the rally, that made the mining stocks that made for the 50% gain in the mining stock indexes, they're all taking a rest. The metals are taking a rest. The large cap and the mid-tier, the major mining stocks, they're taking a rest. The juniors have yet to move as part of the current rally. That should be ahead of us as investors increasingly get involved in this rally. So anyway, that's where I think we're at. Big picture, we're in the middle of or at the start, really, of a sustained precious metals rally, and we're just at a resting point. Could be a very good entry to pick up some more mining stocks, which is exactly what I plan to do tomorrow morning. So that's why I took an extended look at these mining stocks. We'll do a market overview in another video. Talk to you soon, folks.